Hi, this is Rodrigo from Frame Freak Studio, and this is the Creative Hustler Show. Today, our guest is Carlos Zaragoza, who works into the animation industry. He has worked in movies such as Puss in Boots, Emoji Movie, Madagascar 3, This is Perukes, many others. So, welcome, Carlos.
Hi, welcome, Rodrigo. How are you?
Pretty good. So, for the people who don't know about you, can you tell us a little bit about your history? How did you get started into arts?
It's a long story because I'm very old, but to make it short, basically I can say that I'm originally from Madrid in Spain. I grew up in Madrid, and that's basically when I did my first steps in the industry. I first did study fine arts in the university at Madrid, and for a while I was working for myself, painting in my studio, doing photography and painting, and working with galleries, doing some exhibitions. But like in mostly of the work is very difficult to make a living out of your personal work, and mostly in fine arts. And at a certain point, I realized that I needed something that actually can make a living in Madrid. And at that time, they reopened the official film school, and I was really excited because it was exactly what I like all my life. But not working for myself, but working in the industry, and also production design, art direction. That is one of my dreams over. And so I went to the film school after fine arts. I spent another 3 years studying art direction for live action movies. And I worked in live action for around 10 years. So my career is 50% in live action and 50% in animation. I work in many movies. The one you probably know best is Pan's Labyrinth, El Laberinto del Fauno in the Spanish version. And that was an amazing experience. And I loved working mostly in fantasy movies, period films. I don't care if it's animation or live action. For me, it's basically the same. And those, were such amazing experiences. But at a certain point, I got tired of being waiting for the interesting projects to come to Spain or Madrid. And my girlfriend at that time, my wife, Aurora, we moved to London. And that's where I started my animation career. My first animation movie was actually 10, 11 years ago, Tale of Desperate in London. And from that, I worked in another one in London, Romeo and Juliet, moved to Canada to finish the production. And then I got hired by DreamWorks. I first started in PDI up north. And then I moved to the Glendale campus. And then one project after another. I was at DreamWorks almost 5 years before I moved to Paramount Animation. That was a new studio, and it was a very interesting, very exciting time, right? Getting to a new studio and they're actually coming out with the early ideas, the style. But a year later, I got a call from Sony to invite me to do production design, and that was a great opportunity to say no. So that's why I moved to Sony, and I did the production design of the Emoji Movie. And right after that, I just started a new project, and that's basically it.
Nice. Can you tell us a little bit about the process that you follow, the creative process that you follow to create like the elements for these movies?
Well, first, one of the most exciting moments for me in a project, that is the first time you read the script. Sometimes it's not, there's no full script written yet. Sometimes it's just a treatment, sometimes it's just a pitch from the director. But that's very, for me, very fun, because it's, when you actually, the first time you imagine the movie, right? And from that, I basically have a, long conversations with the directors, because all this is about supporting his vision of the story and creating the visuals for that. So there's a lot of conversations with the director to get to know him or her and understand what his or her language is, and coming up with the ideas to support that. So it basically more talking than drawing and painting. And right after that, you get, I start doing research, because independently of what the movies are, Pan's Labyrinth is very different from the Emoji Movie, as you can guess, but it's a very similar process. You have to do research to find the inspiration to be able to come up with something new and fresh that you haven't seen 100 times. And obviously, then I start to do very, very rough ideas, rough concepts, to show the director and start getting his feedback or her feedback very, very quickly before getting into, full developed ideas.
Great. And you just mentioned something that is key. I think that many people outside the industry who want to work into these bigger studios have this romanticized idea that once they get there, like, they will do the art that they want, and that pretty much like it's going to be all happiness and flow.
Mm-hmm.
But you just mentioned the truth that is like, this is work, and pretty much when you go to a studio, you are trying to help the director to build up his vision, and pretty much you have to work with a team to pretty much integrate all this art together and put all these pieces together to form something. And it's not like, oh, this is my art, and pretty much I will do whatever I want, which is kind of the attitude that I see in many of my friends who are very talented artists, but like when they are being asked for some changes or something like that, they most positive way.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about this dynamic of working in a team and pretty much to do the work that will be useful to the team and the director for the movie?
Well, it's tricky. I think it's ongoing learning experience. Even for me, in every project you deal with very different stories, people, and you have to learn how to basically get to work with them and have altogether one single vision. And that's the most tricky thing. So for example, I like to, basically it's a very collaborative work. So when, before I went to the film school, I was working for myself in my studio, doing my paintings, prepping an exhibition. I was the director, I was the producer, I was everything, right? I had full decisions on whatever I wanted. In making a movie is different. Right after I finished the film school, for me was shock being in this first feature production, working with 1,000 people, and none of the decisions from each individual is what is making the movie, but it's the contribution of all of them. So you have to learn how to contribute without trying to basically impose your ideas. Also, because we are very passionate about what we do, we like to, get our ideas out there, right? So it's a very interesting learning experience, how to get your ideas, but also support the story and support the vision of the director and the producer. But yes, for students who think that they can do whatever they want, it's not that you can do whatever you want, but you have to be very creative and very inventive to be able to work in one of these movies.
Definitely. And on this area, what is a mistake that you see most people who are starting out into their careers? What would be the most common mistake that you see them doing that they are not aware that they are doing?
I don't know. I don't see one specific mistake that is the most important. I think that independently you study in one, like in the Art Center or Ringling or CarArts. That is an animation is a school that is intimately linked with the industry. Or if you study online, it doesn't matter. I think there's a little bit of disconnection between the schools and the industry in terms of not understanding that factor. I think that making movies is very collaborative. So it's not about your individual vision. And even for directors in Hollywood, they're not the producers, so they're also, they had to address changes in the story, changes in the look of the movie based on the opinion from the producers at the studio. So that's one of the main ones. Then the second one that I think is very important is that students, because the schools are designed in a way to prepare the students to get ready for the industry in one specific aspect, they don't have a overall concept of what a direction is or production design is, independently of if you do visual development or if you do set design or character design. I think it's very important to have a global vision of how important is that factor in the whole project. And that's something that I think they're lacking, that global vision of the concept of the design of the movie.
I see. On the other hand, when you started your career, what was something that you didn't expect at all to become true, that it became true and is really important as well?
Well, it depends, because I started many careers. I mean, it's at the end it's the same, but I've done live action, I've done theater, stage design, and then animation, right? So when I started live action, I was dreaming of, going to Hollywood, and here I am. And I was dreaming of working with, very interesting directors that I've done. But I also loved animation. But at that time, my background wasn't a good fit for traditional animation movies. So that was a surprise how I ended up redirecting my career to end up doing animation movies. And I loved it.
On the other hand, what is something that you completely expected to become true that is still true and is really important?
Well, I guess that coming to Hollywood, when I was in Madrid, I mean, I grew up with a combination of Italian, Spanish, French, and American cinema, right? And that's my background. So, but I grew up with, absolutely admiration for all the Hollywood movies, from Charles Chaplin's to Spielberg. And for me, was kind of a dream to be able to, sometime to work in the industry here.
Nice. Since you had this experience of working both in live films and animation, what are the things that you think that are similar, and what are the things that you think they differentiate? Besides the obvious that you are not animating and filming, right?
Yeah. Well, for me, I mean, one of my dreams is that one day, all these concepts about what animation movies should be or what live action should be, they disappear, and animation or live action photography becomes is seen just as the technique. For me, it's just a technique, but I think it's that would be great if one day people don't think in those terms of, oh, this should be animation or live action. They just pick the best technique to do their movie, right? That would be great. I think there are a lot of advance in progression in progress in that term, that animation movies are becoming more cinematic and more immersive, and live action movies they don't have the technical boundaries that they had before. So with CG they can do whatever they want, right? Is for example, the last Valerian, the last movie from Luc Besson, I don't think of it like a live action movie or a realistic movie, right? Everything mostly is CG and very creative. So I think that's the direction that I like to see in both worlds, animation and live action.
I think that is going to become more united thanks to virtual reality, maybe in 20 years or something like that. I think that is definitely, I think it's going to disrupt a little bit how theaters work, but it will be interesting to pretty much just immerse yourself into a whole history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And talking about VR, what opportunities do you see in this industry?
What personal opportunities or opportunities for people who
both will work.
Sorry?
A personal opportunities, I think it will work better because obviously you will have better insight into it.
Well, I think we're in a time that is very for me very exciting, because the industry is changing again very quickly. So a few years ago, in animation you only had a batch of animation movies per year. You have one per Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, usually two, and Sony one. That was it. And now we have, I think this year were 26 features trying to be part of the selection for the Oscars. And the next year there will be more and more. And that's a great thing that is happening, because what it means is that the animation studios, they have to be more creative and inventive about the stories they tell, about the look of the movies, about the audience, because mostly of the time, still now, animation movies are considered family audience only, or for little kids. And that's very restrictive for us storytellers, because we have a very specific range of stories and looks to explore. But with these changes in the industry, there are a lot of new studios all over the world that are producing feature. And also with the new distribution, Netflix and Amazon and others that have become producers, also the theme for the animation movies is expanding. So they are considering adult theme movies. They're and that's very interesting, because that's one thing that I miss from live action, that range of genres and possibilities for the story.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with that. Like, one of my major complaints has been through all the time is that animation, be it 2D or 3D, has been stuck into like kids kind of movies.
Yeah.
And I think there is a huge missing opportunities to explore like an adult film animation with more violence, more uh, real issues or hard problems,
Mhm.
bigger battles. Like
Yeah.
I see all these. I always have like more kind of dark themes, and I see like this is a huge missing opportunity that people are not making animation for adults anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that will happen. I mean, I hope, but I see that this is happening right now. So, a few years we'll have more variety in the kind of animation movies that we have.
I hope you're right. on on the topic of pretty much being in the middle of this chaos and trying to work, what do you do when you feel like overwhelmed, when you feel tired and you need to go back to your center?
Well, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. There's not an easy solution for that. I don't know. I try many things, but I don't think any of them is 100% successful. Uh, it's Yeah, I mean, one thing that helped me a lot is when, because I get in love with every project I work in. I couldn't work in a project that I'm not interested or excited about. And so to get back to, when you are in the middle of production, you actually forget about the story very easily. You have to remind yourself, why are you liking that project? And also why you like animation movies or why you like movies, right? For myself, what I do is me and Aurora, my wife, we go to the Egyptian theater here, the American Cinematheque, from time to time to watch a very good movie, to remind yourself of why you like movie making. And then you get the inspiration that you're lacking, after working long hours and long hours. And that's very helpful. And also sleeping. I think it's one very important thing here is that because we have to spend so much time working in whatever we do, designing the movie, we have to also be aware that keeping your body, sleeping well, eating well is a very important thing. You don't see the direct relation with the quality of your artwork or your ideas, but it's actually 100% effective.
Yeah, definitely. I've been trying to focus more on sleeping, and if for some reason I wake up earlier than usual and I realize that there is like, okay, there are a couple of hours missing in my normal sleep range, I just go back
Mhm.
to sleep. I try to push the work a little bit hard, later, and I also have integrated like naps in the afternoon, and
Mhm.
I felt that has increased a lot my productivity. Like once I start getting on focus, I just go take a nap, then I come back to work, and it's like completely refreshed.
Yeah, that's yeah, actually that's what my dad uh, used to do, and I should learn from that. Like a 15 minutes power nap after lunch, and then you get restarted. You know.
Yeah. On the topic of of problems, is there has there been any failure that you have, or apparent failure that set you up for major success in the future?
Whoa, many failures. Yes, a lot. I think it's that the thing is I think it's important to have failures to learn from. I know people who've been very successful for a long time and they suddenly have a failure, and it's very difficult for them to recover from that. But yeah, I think basically failures are things you have to learn from. So it's not a negative thing. It's something doesn't work. or you were wrong, or you were going in the wrong direction, you have to, after that happened, re-examine and say, hey, it is great. I just learned something. There are failures that are more expensive than others, and that's is always dangerous. But even so, I think it's a good thing that you're able to learn from your failures. I can't recall any specific one, but I will say, yes, for example, the usual failure of not delivering something on time, or it's very important that your workflow, you're able to schedule and have the work done very ready at the time that you have to deliver. When I started, I wanted to to impress everybody all the time, and spending a lot of time working on my ideas, and then I didn't have time to deliver those on time. And I learned that it's very important that you get your ideas across in time, in the right timing, and you'll have to time to impress later. But I think it's more important to get a good idea than not having any, and that's something to learn very, very early in your career.
Definitely. Also, in the last 5 years, has there been any habit, belief, or behavior that has improved your life, be it in the professional life or overall?
Well, I guess that I think it's important to have a personal life. That's actually what is going to make you a better artist. So, and this is very difficult, because if you are very passionate about what you do, you're going to spend 24 hours, right? In my case, Aurora, my wife, does the same. She's a designer and a business artist and character designer, and we are like working on it 24 hours. But we got to a point when I think it's mostly her, when you have a balance of your personal life versus work. And if you're an artist, you can't stop. But at least what you can do is work on personal projects on your not office time, and try to do the work for the studio in the office times and not on the weekends. And sometimes it's difficult because you have to, you get into the end of the production and you have to deliver something. But mostly having a personal life and traveling and meeting people and making friends, and that's what's going to improve your career very much.
Yeah, I think that's a focus that I should be trying to put more into these interviews now that you mention it, because like the best artists that I ever met, many of them get their best ideas from traveling a lot and having a good time, and pretty much having all these experiences, and pretty much life itself helps them to get inspired to do the most amazing work they have done. And I think that's lost in many artists, because I know many talented artists who pretty much locked up in the room and never go out, and they just spend all their time working art over there, and they never go outside and experience life.
Yeah, it's a personal balance that you have to get. And the other thing is, actually, I get a lot of inspiration from real life. Even for to do emoji movie, I got mostly inspiration of just walking around Los Angeles and seeing people and talking with people and finding the unexpected. That is very important, and that only happen in you actually are able to improvise and and don't spend most of your life in the studio or your house, and going out and finding the unexpected is very important.
Definitely. Also, this is a topic as well that I see many artists ignoring, which is kind of how to get the business skills. Even if they don't want to put the business, I think the business skills, even just knowing them in theory by reading books about it and things like that, can help you out greatly into entering into getting these jobs in these big studios and work better inside them. How did you go about it? How did you learn all the business skills necessary to get the opportunities that you had?
Well, I think it's having an initial learning experience, like going to film school or the art school, is very important. But then our life, basically in our life, is like a continuous learning process. So you have to keep improving from time to time. You have to keep improving, learning something that you need. What I do is I try to learn something specifically linked to the project I'm working on. So that way it's easier to incorporate that in my daily work. So if I have a new project when vehicles design is important, I try to learn that and apply that in the specific project. But yes, it's like a continuous career. There's no time when you really stop learning.
Yeah, that is something that never ends. And on the same topic, what are the biggest challenges that you have faced into your career?
The bigger challenges. Well, I guess that it's a challenge, but I mean, for me, it was an opportunity. Basically, I see them as opportunities. Like every time I reoriented my career. So first, I was fine art artist and working for my own and doing exhibitions and in galleries. And then I decided to reorient my career and going to the film school to study art direction. And the same, when I did stage design, and then when I turned into animation movies. So I think those, for me, being the most challenging situations, because, for example, in animation, I was used to be already production designer and art direction in live action. But when I did my first animation movie, I had to start over. So it was, working with people who are very super experienced and very talented in animation movies, and learning from them and trying to be very humble and say, well, I'm here to learn. I'm already a director, but it doesn't matter. I want to start from scratch and apply what I already know from live action. So those moments were the most challenging, but for me were also opportunities.
Definitely. And the same topic, let's say you had in front of you a young, smart, driven artist who is about to enter the real world. What advice would you give to him? And what advice should they ignore?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of the question.
If you had a young, smart, driven artist that is about to enter the real world, what would be the advice that you will give to them? And what advice should they ignore?
Well, I don't know what advice should they ignore, but I think they should. I mean, they should be, open to receive advice and asking for advice, but also don't worry in excess about people. I mean, I can tell you that I hear sometimes, very experienced professional giving advice to students and saying your work is not going anywhere and you better go and work on something else. And sometimes they may be right, but I don't think it's a good way to put it. And I think it's, there's nothing set in stone in the movie making industry. There's room for very different things and very different artists and very different approaches to design. It's more important to give advice about how to direct you to a specific niche or a specific part of the movie making, right? So I will give advice to the students in terms of keeping your eyes open and trying to talk with the most experienced professionals of all different ages. So talking with people who've been in Disney for 20 years, but also talking with very young artists who are doing an independent project in France, right? Because you need both perspectives, I know very super experienced artists who had a very conservative perspective of what animation movies should be or art. And at the same time, you have very young people who are super talented and have a very unique and interesting point. So you have to talk with both. It doesn't matter if someone is very old or not. I think you have to go and ask everybody who is doing something interesting.
Yeah, and definitely this topic that you just mentioned, that your skills might be in use of something. And I think many of the times, let's say the artist wants to become an animator or something like that, but maybe his talents are not that good for animation, but maybe it is for character design or for visual development. And this is a thread that I've been seeing, because pretty much that was me for a long time. Like, it was very obvious that I had a great skills for logic and strategy, but for a long time I wanted to be kind of the artist, kind of the free guy. Mm-hmm. There was this point that I remember that it was very obvious. It wasn't a self-defeating kind of attitude, but it was a very honest, very centered kind of opinion that got into my head, that, like, because I saw the work of other friends of mine, and that voice was like, there was no way that even if in your best position in life mentally, and even if you had all the things you needed available, mm-hmm. you will not have been able to create something that good. And I didn't feel bad about it nor good about it. It was just honest. Like, mm-hmm. and the more that I saw it, like the things that my friends created, and the more obvious it was, like, it doesn't matter how much hard work I put into it, I wasn't going to get that good. That didn't came out naturally. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, like, the logic kind of thing, the logic kind of work. For example, I studied coding for a little while. That came horribly natural to me. And when I studied a little bit of architecture, that also came very natural to me, because it was kind of these logic skills and strategy skills that was needed. And when I found myself into entrepreneurship, now the good thing is that I have now the knowledge of the art side, so I know what the artist is and how the process works and all that. But I was able to support them from this other side of business strategy and making connections and creating strategies that will get us sales and in videos and clients and all this stuff. and that clicks so well with me. But for a long time, I didn't want to admit that this logic side was the best that I could do, and I wanted to believe I was the artist. And I think that made me lose a long time into what I could have been done best.
Yeah, I mean, you have to find it. I mean, it's not easy to find, and so I think the best thing is to talk with as many different artists you can, because everyone is going to give you their own unique perspective, and sometimes they're not very imaginative about seeing you doing something that is different from what they do. So it's like, asking for a second doctor opinion or third doctor opinion. I think you should visit many doctors before taking a decision.
Yeah, pretty much that's the reason why I started this interview show as well, to learn from many different experiences. And funny that you mentioned as well that you should not only get the advice of the big time industry artists that have been there for years, but also the young artists. And many of the people that I invite as well is like, oh, haven't I got this invite by mistake? Like, I'm just a small guy, and these guys that you have interviewed are so big and so powerful. It's like, no, like, I really want your opinion. And I have gotten like amazing advice as well that never occurred to me from these small-time artists who are still trying to make it. Things that I could apply because, again, like, we are still starting up. And also, like, a different insight from the big-time artists.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you just say, like, being able to talk with all of them and from different countries as well, and seeing their perspective is like, if I can get just one piece of the puzzle and to build my own puzzle and pretty much build my own system, then that helps a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, this is a really hard question that I like to ask to all the people that I interview, but it gets me sometimes very interesting answers. So let's say you wake up tomorrow in another dimension, pretty much similar to this, but nobody knows about you. But you have all your skills, all your experience, you have all the tools that you need, and you have $500 in your pocket. What do you do to get at this point, professionally speaking, as soon as possible?
Well, if you have, I mean, that's something I imagine many times, right? What happens if you go back in time, to be a 10 years old kid, and I always thinking, oh, with all the information I have, oh, that will be very useful, or will be a nightmare. I don't know. But I guess that I don't know if I will do the same. I know that your question is how to get here with all the information that I know already, but I will be interested in doing something else. That's pretty sure, because I know already what I'm doing and I like it. But I start again. I wouldn't do the same. I will do something related, but not exactly the same. But to respond to your question, I think it's just basically I will go and talk what we just mentioned. I will try to, and it's very easy right now, try to contact the best professional that I admire in the industry and take their advice. And with that, obviously, I will prep a portfolio. I will prep the best portfolio to show the right people. And basically, I will focus on what I like to do, because my career has been, I haven't direct my career at 100%. Being living in Spain and try to make a living of your art is difficult. Also, even making movies if you're interested in fantasy film or period films, it's not that easy. So I'd work in projects that, you know, wouldn't be my ideal project. So at the end, your portfolio or your curriculum is actually made out of very different things. But if I had the opportunity to design my life or my portfolio, I will actually focus on what I like the most and show that to the people that I admire and try to get to work with them.
Nice. Also, is there any advice that you would like to give young artists that we haven't talked yet about this interview?
I'm sorry, Rodrigo, I missed that.
Is there any advice that you would like to give to young artists that we haven't talked about into this interview?
Oh, yes. One that I used to give, but I think is very important. And I think being the most skillful artist is important. But also, I think in what we do in movies, trying to be original as possible. Now, I think it's easier than any time to find reference, to find inspiration, to find information about a specific aspect or characters or locations. But what we do is supposed to be unique. It's supposed to be a very specific vision on a story. So obviously it takes less time to go and refer something that already exists. But I think it's important to try to be as original as possible and come out with an idea nobody has seen before.
Yes, I think there is a lot of people trying to do what is already out there because they like it. And I think it's a phase every artist maybe has to go through. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it will be better to find their own uniqueness and their own pretty much point of view and try to communicate that through their art.
Yeah. Yeah, at the end, I mean, if you're doing something that you've seen many times, you know, it could be, maybe it's a, you know, you can get a feeling that you already belong to that group of artists who do that. But at the same time, you don't have your own voice, you know, so you're basically part of a category of artists, but you don't have your own personality in what you do.
Yeah. If people want to find you online, where will be the best place to do so?
Well, I have an online portfolio site that is carlosfilmdesign.com. And actually, I mean, there's a lot of work from, you know, my live action projects and animation projects. Not much from the last years because I've worked in projects that are either on development or canceled. So not many from the last 4 or 5 years. And they can also follow me in Instagram. But I mostly do like my personal stuff in Instagram.
Great. Thanks a lot for being here and giving us your advice. I know that you're a very busy person, so I really appreciate that you have taken your time into being here and giving us all this knowledge.
Thanks to you, Rodrigo. It's been an honor to be interviewed.
So this has been the last episode of the Creative Hustler Show. If you like it, please click the like button below and also share it with your friends. Until next time.